right, here we are, folks. Happy Friday. It's the end of another week. Thank you all for joining. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. We have a true treat for you today with Andrew coming from Rise and Shine. And their mission is centered on bridging the gap between traditional and decentralized finance. So I'm super excited to bring you this brilliant mind. I had the opportunity actually to see Andrew speak not too long ago at a networking event in Boston. So it's all coming together full circle. And as folks do come in here, Keanu, Chase, Miguel, Alvaro, Lourdes, Trisha, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you. And before we do get into it, folks, what we're going to do is just going to go over some quick house rules. This is a safe space. There are no stupid questions here. We do want to make sure that you feel comfortable and can join into the conversation. We'll do a Q&A around the 30-minute mark or so. And we do not talk about anything that is related to financial advice. The opinions of us are of our own and do not necessarily represent the organization that we represent. And lastly, this is a safe space. You know, if it's anything that's a little bit too controversial or spicy for a family dinner during the holidays, we probably want to avoid that here during this conversation. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome you to Andrew. How's it going today, Andrew?
Trevor, what's up, man? Super excited to do this. Thank you for the kind words and introduction. I was really happy to have met you over at Boston Blockchain Week. It was an incredible event, and I'm happy that we got to do this relatively quickly.
Yeah, for sure. So let's give everyone in the audience that may not be familiar with who you are, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, your current role, and then give that 30-second elevator pitch, a little bit more about what Rise and Shine's all about.
Sure. Rise and Shine Partners is a blockchain infrastructure manager, and we are putting out a traditional financial fund structure, through the traditional SEC exemptions for accredited investors that will dedicate our investment thesis primarily to the Avalanche blockchain and building out infrastructure within that ecosystem. We are offered on Oasis Pro Markets, which is one of the registered broker-dealers who is doing some of the work around tokenization. So I'm the portfolio manager at Rise and Shine. We're a team of three, and we're very excited about the launch of this product.
Fantastic. Now, let's bring it back to the genesis of all of this. So, your background started in banking, and, now you're obviously working in this space. So, can you take us back a little bit on your journey and then your overall entry into the world of blockchain? And what was that really kind of defining moment that truly drew you in?
Yeah, thank you. And let's take it back in the day because funny enough, my start in the business was in the summer of 2007. I had just graduated high school and I decided to make this change where instead of going to college to play soccer, I took this equity job as an equity broker to try and learn the world of finance as I put myself through school. It just sounded like a good idea at the time, but little did I know, I was walking right into '08, and
Ooh,
my financial career while I was going through school, getting my Series 7 license,
wow.
was actually birthed during the financial crisis. So I kind of had like this skeptic view to the markets, contrarian view to the markets, really since my genesis in getting involved in the markets. So then you fast forward to kind of, graduating university, working through a number of financial firms, getting the designations that, push you forward, working across asset classes. I've worked everything from equities to municipal bonds, and have graduated more towards the alternative investment space, and was in my last corporate role at City National Bank in 2017. But it was after that I decided to jump out and be an entrepreneur. And it didn't take long before I found myself getting involved in blockchain.
Love that, love that. And, as someone that may not have always been a full believer in the capacity of this technology, were there any really kind of pivotal experiences or insights that shifted your perspective and led you to kind of want to kind of really go all in and fully embrace decentralized finance?
Yes, there were two kind of big news items that pushed me to take a jump from, consulting in the traditional finance world, which was what I was doing at the time,
Hmm.
to saying I need to build my future in this industry and find a way to leverage my traditional finance skills, and kind of marry the two together. So those two events were the collapse of FTX. It had reminded me so much of what I had seen, in the '08 days when the Bear Stearns and Lehmans were failing,
Yeah.
and remembering like, man, like, it was crazy times. But then, if you had bought companies that were bottoming out, going into '09, you would have done amazing. So that kind of light went off for me, and I said, okay, what will happen in the world of crypto or blockchain that, after this crisis, there's going to be something where there's going to be opportunity. So I really started digging deeper and deeper, um, when I saw that, like when that happened. Like where can I do the research, do the hard work on my own to find where I think there will be an opportunity to build a business, really. Um, the second event was when I saw that, Deloitte had built an application for FEMA and was working on building an application for FEMA for the federal government, for the quick deployment, of funds during a disaster. And I didn't really know what I was looking at, but I thought, like, okay, we have Deloitte, we have one of the big four accounting firms, right? Ledgers, okay, I understand that, and they're using blockchain. Something's happening here, and I gotta find out what's happening. So it was those two things together that made me, spend the sleepless nights of reading the white papers and the commentary and just everything I could get my hands on.
And your educational background, I'm sure that that uniquely shaped your views on, DeFi and overall blockchain technology as well too. So, kind of help me
For
under, kind of help me understand, like what were some of those lessons from, your studies that you applied back then and that you're probably still even applying today.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because those were what made me a skeptic at first. I'm a CFA, chartered financial analyst, trained, you know, really down to the roots of everything that is cash flow, right?
Mm.
Unless it generates cash, and the present value of that cash flow, you need to, to help you assign some value, to a business or an asset. Commodities might be a little bit different, and you have more of a pure supply and demand based on, but based on very real world utility. So I didn't understand Bitcoin very well. I didn't understand what was accomplished on the technology side. So for so long, I just looked at it and the imitations that came after, and I just thought, well, if anyone could make this, or copy this, um, you had all these companies coming out forking Bitcoin and then starting their own chains and putting their own marketing on it, or doing some version of that. And I thought, well, if anyone could create Andrew Coin and Dogecoin and Joe Coin, how is there value there? And if I don't know who's made this, would I ever invest in a company that, I didn't know who the CEO was? So there was a lot there that you made you a skeptic. And I'll admit, I commented in an article back in 2018 where I thought the value of Bitcoin by the year 2023 would be zero. And
Maybe
I
a
swung
lot of
and missed
people
on
did.
that.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said I think that a lot of people, shared those kind of same views, and I don't think that anyone could really have, being able to forecast where we are today. And let's shift a little bit more and help the audience learn about the core mission of Rise and Shine, and how do you envision it standing out in this ever evolving blockchain landscape?
Well, yeah, it kind of tails right off into now what we just touched on, because when the digging started, it went to go and say, okay, what is the technology behind this, right? And it's decentralized agreement, right? It's removing that intermediary or that central authority to confirm, on the case of Bitcoin, the movements of Bitcoin. But we can do this with all data, right? And the concept of decentralized agreement, meaning that those who we allow in a network, or us as a community in a network, can confirm data or agree on data on a shared ledger.
Yes.
Well, now that's incredible. That's powerful. So Rise and Shine as a company or as a fund, you know, our thesis is to scale blockchains. It's to scale trust. It's to scale the permissioned ledgers that might be used between uh, private networks, whether that be in gaming, the financial system, the supply chain, or whatever the use case. But we want to scale the power of decentralized agreement. And for that, I think you need to scale multiple blockchains in a permissioned kind of way.
And you just had mentioned something as well too, and I know that you spoke about this recently, about how do you scale trust. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I know that's something you're very passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's what it boils down to. If you go back to Satoshi and the Nakamoto Consensus Protocol, if I send you a Bitcoin, there's no central authority confirming that. We all know that, we can confirm that's happened. It's on a, but in this case, it's a public ledger. Well, if we have a protocol that can do this in a very scalable way, and then can do it in a way that allows enterprise to launch blockchains, right? Almost to think blockchain as a service.
Yeah.
And then that means, me and a consortium of banks can share a ledger, and all the trading and settlement that goes on between that can settle instantly. And we don't have reconciliation between our banks. We have more automation uh, of money, higher velocity of money, which opens up a lot of opportunity for investment and cost savings. So just to be even more specific, if you take like your traditional private fund launch, maybe they need to raise $100 in capital to make it cost effective. But when you can start doing these things on better systems with better scale, you can get funding amounts lower,
Yeah.
right? And that allows more people to get involved, in summary. So we think, as these things, as decentralized ledgers scale, it will uh, contribute to what a lot of people want, and more of the democratization of the financial system.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit more about your team. I know that it's so crucial to have a quality team of individuals that you're able to trust and really build with, especially in the early days. So, can you just help us understand a little bit more about, some of the mindset behind your current team and what was that like building them together, and what's the overall bond like today that you've been able to build?
Yeah, I mean, as an entrepreneur, it takes time to learn. It took time to learn how to build a team. Thankfully, by the time I got to this venture, I knew that looking at my weaknesses and filling in those gaps was essential. But I could also say that this wouldn't, and I could say this wouldn't be possible at all without my two teammates. One of which is my brother and CTO partner. He runs the blockchain infrastructure. He manages the node infrastructure, and it was a discussion we had over probably an entire summer where, I remember as kids, him setting us up on Napster, if you remember Napster in
Yes,
those days,
yes.
right? And AOL and cranking up dial-up. And, I really had him give me this because he's in the cybersecurity space. And I had him give me this whole explanation of, how did the original networking work between companies, and how did the internet work? How did you connect? What did that mean? Who are the root servers? I didn't understand any of that world. So as he explained networks to me, I started to learn this a lot more, and we birthed the idea together. Finance and technology. Uh, I really feel and stand behind that kind of bridging the gap between traditional and decentralized finance, but also the IT world. Many of which I think they're going to be bridging into this world as well. And then second was on the marketing side. So much happens on social media these days. Not my strength, but I spoke with and made a great contact through the family, a family friend, and I hired Julie McKenna, who's our head of marketing, and she's just been incredible. She has done all the heavy lifting on the marketing side. Everything you see from our website to our commentary to design, that's Julie, and it's just been Uh, Incredible to have her on the team.
It's been a blessing. Yes, indeed, indeed. And talk to us a little bit more about, some of your recent partnerships. I know that you all, I think, believe just recently partnered with Oasis Pro. So tell us a little bit about that, what they're all about, and how do you foresee, this collaboration transforming the way traditional investors engage with Web3, and maybe even elaborate a little bit more about the types of other partnerships that you're looking to pursue.
Sure. So, Oasis has been a great partner of ours. They're both our um, onboarding partner and placement agent. So, anyone on the accredited investor side who joins our fund can go through Oasis Pro Markets. They would onboard, do their KYC, do their accreditation checks the same way they would, do things traditionally. This way, we're doing our, best to be compliant.
Andrew, before you can continue there, I like where you're going, but maybe because there may be different levels of understanding of in terms of investing with retail, accredited, can you help us just understand on a very basic level what the difference is and what that means?
Yeah, so retail investors can traditionally access products on exchanges or products that are registered under the Investment Company Act of 1940, and it's a high standard of disclosures and regulations with the SEC. There are other SEC exemptions for what we typically call a hedge fund. That's how people may commonly know them, where only accredited investors with a certain net worth and/or qualifications, income. There are a few hurdles you could meet to hit that accredited status, but they would be able to access private funds or hedge funds that meet certain SEC exemptions because they're structured in a particular way. Um, those funds, private funds in short, or hedge funds, um, are a lot of what you see being tokenized on platforms like Oasis Pro or Securitize or Republic, right? Some these more of these private offerings, which are fun. Interestingly enough, let me say, now very attractive in the tokenization space because private funds, which typically are less liquid, now have uh, an, another liquidity avenue through blockchain, through tokenization. So it's an interesting world that's developing as financial assets move onto blockchain systems,
It,
albeit slowly.
yeah, it's fascinating too because, right, you started in banking, you had your skepticism with, crypto, blockchain, and now you're in the space and you're starting to obviously see a lot of institutional interest and or adoption with ETFs and other types of things that are products that are being currently worked on. So how has that really kind of shifted your mindset, and do you think that we're at a point where this is going to start to become much more mainstream, or do we have a lot further to go?
I think we're at a inflection point.
Mm.
That's why, we've taken a step to, build a business on this. So, I don't think there's a secret there. I think some of the things we've seen behind that w- are some of the shared applications that are coming out. But, one of the things that caught my eye, we spoke about it in Boston, the city of Quincy through JP Morgan's Onyx blockchain
Yeah.
issued the first municipal bond on chain. I mean, nothing gets more boring in our industry than muni bonds, and I've sold them, right? I spent 3 years selling munis, and to see a municipal bond issued on chain, and again, kind of going back to where we were talking about getting funding costs down, right? As municipalities have more efficiency uh, in their issuance process, right? You can get some of these, ideally, get these costs down and issue bonds cheaper for a municipality like a Quincy. Um, so as the world upgrades to better systems, I think it's going to take time. I think the infrastructure needs to continually be built out. but I think financial assets will continue to move onto blockchain systems.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears a little bit here, and we are almost at that halfway mark. Gosh, this conversation is flying by, but that always happens when you're having a good time. And if anyone is in the audience that would like to ask a question, please prepare yourself to do so in a few minutes. Raise your hand, and we will do our best to bring you up here. But I wanted just to shift gears a little bit more because I know that you're really passionate about Avalanche ecosystems. So talk to us a little bit more about some of the things that you've been involved with, but more so any kind of emerging trends within that ecosystem that you are really passionate about, and what gives you confidence in its ability to kind of grow in the future.
Yeah, so we just came back from the summit last week, which was down in Argentina. It was incredible. The things that people are building on Avalanche, their consensus protocol to launch their own layer one blockchains or, their own enterprise use case blockchains, um, is very, I mean, I think it's set at that point where adoption is going to come in, where we're going to have maybe that chat GPT moment where that application is out and everyone's saying, they don't necessarily know it's built on Avalanche. There's no ICO, there's no token generation event, but there's the blockchain in the background, doing the hard work, and then people are going to be playing, one of the most exciting game projects being launched is actually a video game, but it's a very mainstream game by Gunzilla Gaming Company, and the name of the game is called Off the Grid. And I
Yeah,
think
I've heard about this. Tell us more about that. That's awesome.
yeah, like 6 million users in the first couple of weeks, and it's not that the game is sitting on the blockchain, but the entire gaming marketplace is powered by the blockchain. So, I'm sure you can, their guys can do a better job explaining it than I can, but effectively the gaming marketplace, if you ever played like a Call of Duty or one of these online first shooter games, you're exchanging game assets all the time or buying new game assets and new skins. Fortnite's another game like this. And well, what if we can now exchange those gaming assets peer to peer? Or be rewarded for the gaming assets that we've upgraded, and they're not just money we've spent giving it to the gaming company, but money that we can resell those assets to other players. So gaming marketplaces, I think, is like one of the most perfect use cases to power something on a blockchain. But I think that a lot of the gaming industry is going to be looking at that and looking to copy that.
Yeah, gaming can definitely be a Trojan horse for sure to get more mainstream adoption of this. And looking ahead, maybe even before we get to that, talk to us a little bit more about just the overall, I would say, ecosystem in Buenos Aires, right? What were some of the biggest hurdles, do you believe, when it comes for blockchain deployment there and other emerging markets? And what are some ways that we can probably, overcome that as a community?
Well, in emerging markets, you certainly have the need for payments and even stable coins and payment systems, much more than you do have here in like the United States. And,
Yeah, yeah.
there are vendors, street vendors there who will accept USDT,
Mm-hmm.
and you just scan your phone. So from a payments and stable coin system, adoption there, might be more desired and heavily desired than it is here right away. Um, so I certainly think there's a lot more room for that in emerging economies. Regulation is a little bit more open than it is here, but with regulation and careful scrutiny of how we define these assets, and I think the U.S. has taken a lot of criticism for it, but at the same time, when we see the number of assets and the speed of assets that you can deploy, that may not be, um, projects that are offering something real. I think we want to get the right regulation behind how we, you know, move forward with adoption.
And do you have any other additional thoughts on just the current, regulatory landscape when it comes for cryptocurrencies in general, and how it may particularly impact your business, or even kind of help it evolve in the coming years?
Here, in the big one, the big thing is custody.
Yeah.
That, in the United States, we're used to putting or having our wealth manager or our investment manager, maybe they have access to manage our assets, and then those assets are held at a particular bank custodian, Schwab, TD, Fidelity. In blockchain changes custody a lot because you can self-custody on a blockchain. So as long as that you trust that, right, that decentralized agreement mechanism is being confirmed, by the protocol and the community on the chain. So custody has changed a lot. Some of the rules around that here, you'll see SAB 121. That's the SEC's, um, you know, um, advisement around how assets are treated on the balance sheet. So whether client assets need to be included on um, the actual bank's balance sheet, which traditionally in the custodied world they would not.
Yeah.
Client assets would be separated, and they made a decision to immediately go for putting all client assets, which you're custodying of any digital asset, has to be included on a balance sheet. And now you're seeing like the first exemption to that rule. I think they gave to Bank of New York Mellon, and you have this very careful regulatory eye on who can custody uh, assets
And where
in
do you
the
and where do you see in the next few years? I mean, maybe your short term view and then long term view on just institutional adoption. I know you were just mentioning some big names that are probably more known, but what are your thoughts just overall on institutional adoption and where it's going?
you know, institutions, you've seen institutions like BlackRock step in now. They put the build fund on, they
Yeah.
used Securitize's tokenization platform to put, I think it's nearly $1 billion of treasury now on chain that can be used as collateral. Right there, you have um, a mechanism where buying and lending can accelerate on chain because there are treasuries on chain and that collateral can be used. So as more uh, of these fundamental first steps are taken with very basic assets, it's almost like the liquidity and the building blocks can grow. But then that's one aspect. The other aspect is, which we've seen for the last 10 years, and I think was kind of like I don't want to be too critical, but kind of like the cheesy way of getting into the industry of like, okay, we're just going to offer brokered, Bitcoin and Ethereum and futures, and
Hmm.
we'll play the trading game with that, and everyone can just keep trading it around. But then there's the third pot, which is I think where we come in, which is the use of blockchain as a technology for shared ledgers, um, by tech companies, by fintech companies, by banks, by gaming institutions, because they want to use that blockchain infrastructure uh, to power decentralized agreement on a ledger.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've spoken about this numerous times before, and I think that we alluded to it a little bit earlier, but kind of helping us understand, the importance of like tokenized deposits when it comes to revolutionizing banking. And can you unpack a little bit about this concept and its potential to disrupt traditional finance, and then maybe add another element or layer to that about why should the average Joe care about that?
You know, for the average Joe, they they won't and shouldn't notice a difference.
Mm.
You know, it shouldn't matter to them whether their deposits are tokenized or not in reality. The average Joe, their banking experience shouldn't change that much. It should only get better. Um, Really, tokenized deposits. We did a couple of blogs on this recently, and you've seen Visa step into the space. I don't know if you've seen Visa's token assetization.
Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, Visa's tokenization asset platform. That's a mouthful. Yeah, so they've kind of offered it as a service to tokenize things like deposits for institutions. But we've also seen companies like JP Morgan do this internally and support projects that are looking at tokenizing deposits on shared networks. And this is for more efficiency in the banking world. So the average Joe, they're only going to get a probably won't experience much, or they may have, their tokenized deposits, will give them direct access to things that are on blockchain. That might be the one upgrade, but otherwise, tokenized deposits primarily will be for the banks to move, you know, their the money that's on their ledger onto better systems, which is ultimately a lot cost savings for the bank and ultimately passed on, should be passed on to the client.
Yeah, then hopefully overall the experience is just kind of seamless. And as you mentioned before, right, we're using the technology without people actually even, knowing it's kind of going on in the background, which is fantastic. Now, the next question is really kind of more focused on your interest of microecon macroeconomic factors rather, and are there any keys that are key trends that people should be closely monitoring that could significantly impact the crypto market? Oh, there you go. You're back up, Andrew. You dropped off for a second there.
Sorry, I'm very sorry about that.
No, no, no worries, no worries, no worries. So the question was, given your focus on macroeconomic factors as well too, are there any kind of key trends that people should be closely monitoring that could significantly impact the markets with crypto?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, and the biggest one is obviously um, interest rates, um, and how geopolitical events might affect both interest rates and people's trust in, just local monetary systems. So
Yeah.
I think that's twofold. And then we could kind of push to like election, how are the candidates looking at it? That's looking favorable. Maybe we leave that aside. But I think there is a geopolitical element to obviously what's going to happen with interest rates. If we see more inflation, how much room does the Fed have to move rates down? Does Wall Street get a feeling, that sentiment that yes, the direction will continue to be lower, and we get that risk on trade where this money starts moving out of money markets, out of savings accounts and into risk assets. That could
Mm.
certainly be um, an accelerant to the industry. Time will tell. But then on the contrary, you know, do geopolitical events, put pressure on oil prices, put pressure on the ability of the Fed to lower rates because we have more inflation. So, these are certainly very relevant items to the pricing of all assets, and digital assets, which have less liquidity than we have in the traditional space. They have wider trading ranges, and that's that volatility you see, really throughout the digital asset space. So it could be a volatile time as people are trying to get a clear cut view on what will happen, over the next few months. But when a direction is known, and markets are going to price that very quickly. So people, that's where your research, your due diligence, your own decision making kind of comes in. But certainly the impact of interest rates on digital assets and the idea of taking risk on or off the table would impact. And then I think Bitcoin might be a little bit different, given the fact that it has kind of this global trust. It is this global trusted alternative. Um, you've seen countries like El Salvador uh, adopt it. Um, is there appetite for countries in their geopolitical space to hold more, of this as a reserve? That's another question that, is, I think, aside from the first one.
Yeah, it's interesting as well too because I think that I was reading something like Microsoft, like their board, just was talking about whether or not they're going to be able to even have the option of investing in Bitcoin. So it's really really interesting where we are going for sure. And in your October newsletter, and maybe you were just talking about this, but you were talking about some major economic shifts. Do you continue to see like those economic shifts really change or influence the crypto markets in the near future?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the Federal Reserve and how the power that they have as markets as interest rates start to move, that affects how all assets are priced, and people's risk reward tolerance to the specific asset that they hold. And as those rates move, that sentiment changes. Um, so asset prices will start shifting around. So we're at the Fed just lowered rates, you know, after being, changing direction, after, the last, 3, 4 years. So it's a pivotal inflection point for all assets. Yeah, I hope that answers.
No, for sure. So let's shift a little bit more to, some of the non-technical stuff and really talk a little bit more about you. And this is going to be helpful for other individuals that are maybe looking to shift in the space. And one of the great parts about having these discussions is being able to learn about the unique things that, impact someone's journey and being able to effectively transition into this industry. So, how have your cultural experiences enriched your understanding of blockchain and decentralized finance? And what do you think are some unique perspectives that, you're able to bring to the table?
Well, you know, first, I think just having kind of a non-traditional path through Wall Street, gave me a different way of looking at things, and always with a skeptical eye. But also traveling, traveling's always beautiful, meeting new people, learning new languages, having met more people who speak more languages, and people who inspired me to go out and learn a new language, opened my eyes, because it gives you a second way of thinking and a second way of looking at the world. And if you know a third language, then you're almost thinking through another lens, because learning language is very cultural in a way. I have my father's from Ecuador. He was born there. I'm a first generation American born here. You come here, you believe in that American dream that you can, you build a company, and um, that entrepreneurial engine
Yeah.
exists for everybody. That's real. It is real here. And when you do travel and meet people who want to come to the United States, they want that. They want that ability. They want to be able to say, hey, if I work hard enough, stick my, you know, head down, get the work done, have a good idea, know how to market myself. I mean, it takes a lot, but you have that mobility. And the world of blockchain interested me, because we've seen that opportunity, while it does exist here, and people from all over the world here want it. The reality is, and people might not like me saying this, but the reality is that that opportunity has gotten smaller. And
Yeah.
the proof is, that 50% of the S&P 500 is made up of six companies. That's
Mm.
half the value of our entire economy is concentrated up into six companies. We need to continue to encourage innovation and competition, so that people have that mobility, and are encouraged to move up, um, and start businesses and take them public. We're at an all-time low for companies going public on the exchanges. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with the weaknesses in the system that people are aware of. But I think there's a lot to be said about, we go back to where we started with scaling trust.
Yeah.
There's a way to use trusted systems, with trusted government, or let me say it this way: there's a way to use trusted systems so that we could begin trusting each other again without having to rely on government, right? Like let's not let necessarily dump it on them to solve it. Right? We have trusted systems to use, and I think they'll contribute to more trust in the financial system. That's kind of my passion behind this.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that you were alluding to this a little bit, but kind of help maybe give a little bit more about advice that you would give to newcomers coming up in the crypto, blockchain, Web3 space? We want to kind of just use that synonymously here for the folks that may
Oh,
be looking to make that transition. But those that are eager to make a meaningful impact, but they don't know where to start. What's your advice? Our words of wisdom from your experience.
yeah. Um, you got to do the homework. You can't go into the conversation pretending like you know what you're speaking about, because when you speak to someone who does, they're gonna know. So that's reading all the white papers, that's interviewing the people involved. It's a lot. Um, I made my first hire 18 months ago. Julie McKenna, she's moving on. I'm proud to say she's moving on to Fireblocks in another week or so.
Oh,
She was
awesome.
hired at a great company. I can say that now. I know that she's accepted that role. And we're hoping to keep incubating talent, not just you know and people. So next year, keep following us. We'll have an announcement for our summer internship. We worked with an intern this last summer as well. Educating people in the space and spreading the word is more important to me um, than anything, because there is a lot of bad information out there in this space. I don't always get it right. I certainly might misspeak sometimes. We try to do our best to keep people as educated as and as accurately as we can. But for anyone that wants to get involved, there's so much networking that goes on in this space. There's the Boston, you see it there in Boston. You guys have a
Yeah.
great community. We'll hopefully we'll have some announcements and partnerships with some of the people we're working up with up there in your area.
Oh yeah,
But
you'll be back soon. You'll be back soon. I'm gonna make sure of that, man, for sure.
but yeah, we're having some conversations, and you guys will hear more about what we're doing in terms of speaking engagements in the community, discussions in the community. But people who want to get involved, don't be afraid. Take that step, get involved, go to the networking events, and start shaking the hands and meet people, because this world, from Boston Blockchain Week, like, it's such a great community of people, and you know of people who are interested in furthering the positive side of
Yes.
crypto and blockchain. I mean, it is there, and it's time that we, put down the conversations and the days of rug pulls and vaporware, right? There's a lot
Mm,
for us to do.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk more action. But while you're talking, talk about action. So as we are wrapping things up, what's a key message that you would like to leave with our, our listeners and the people that are, going to be tuning into the recording later on, regarding the kind of interplay between, traditional finance and decentralized finance?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's in front of us. You see more protocols or tokens being put on traditional exchanges, and by that you see, the Bitcoin ETF,
Mm,
the Ethereum ETF,
mm,
right? At the same time, you see traditional assets moving on to blockchains, treasuries on blockchains, municipal bonds on blockchains, private assets on blockchains. I had this, slide in that presentation, but I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. Many people might not know that about me, or I probably don't look like I'm old enough to have watched it. But I loved Seinfeld, and I and I love that one scene where George comes running in frantic, and like independent George can't reconcile with relationship George, and he's like, worlds are colliding, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs. And that's what we have. Worlds are colliding, guys. Like, the traditional DeFi world and the traditional world of old is colliding with the DeFi world of new. And um, for me, the conversation isn't about NFTs or meme coins or a lot of the hoopla that's been out there. It's about the efficiency of these systems and how they're going to make the financial system better.
Absolutely. So let's shift a little bit more to kind of the fun side of this conversation here today. This has been extremely insightful, and hopefully, this has kind of laid some Easter eggs for people to continue to expand and do their own research and learn about how all of this is converging. But when we had a chance to chat, you had expressed interest in, of all things, stand-up comedy. So, and this is something people probably wouldn't know. So, can you talk a little bit more about that and your interest in stand-up comedy, and then maybe a second part to that question is how do you think humor can serve as a bridge in connecting with others in this finance and tech world?
I love this question. And maybe I revealed where that first came from. I remember being a kid, falling asleep watching Seinfeld, like trying to stay up late, not knowing it was on TV, and just you could throw whatever on television those days, and and Seinfeld wasn't a bad program by any means, really. But yeah, I mean, watching that at night, falling asleep every night, kind of with that on the background. I've probably seen every Seinfeld episode like a million times. Um, and it's just, it's great humor, and I think I always admired the way he could deliver a punchline. And it could be very useful in stand-up speaking in general. But if I could like, if snap your fingers, wake up tomorrow, and just be living in another occupation, I don't think there would be anything better than just being up in front of people, making them laugh, right? Like in our world, we might get it right, we might get it wrong. Not that those odds are 50-50, right? But there's kind of two directions things can go, right? Stocks can go up or down, asset prices can go up or down. A trade happens, someone wins, someone loses, but if you get to, have people walk out of a room laughing, I think if even one of those people, I just find that to be so fulfilling. I love humor. I love, our world is so serious every day. The world we live in, whether and our our jobs, our families, the news, the politics. I mean, a good laugh is goes a long way. So I love that.
For sure, for sure. And also had mentioned this when we had a chance to chat, but you're a soccer enthusiast. So, how do you see the kind of community spirit in soccer mirroring the collaborative ethos of the crypto community?
It's fanatic, we might as well be at a Manchester City versus Manchester United game. It's incredibly fanatic where people, they're aligned with like, oh, this is my and and I guess I'm guilty of that, as well. In many of those circles, I'm referred to as an Avalanche maxi. People will call you a big, maybe a Bitcoin maxi. So yeah, people are fanatic with their teams. But I'll tell you this, like good competition, like soccer, um, you see a talent come along, you see a Leo Messi, you can't deny greatness sometimes.
Yeah,
Um, and then soccer is just something that brings the world together. That's the real beauty of it, and so is crypto. Being down in Argentina was incredible. We have people from all over the world converging on Argentina. We made friends from Australia, Europe, New York City, Argentina, all who want to use, in this case, have a shared interest of using the Avalanche consensus protocol to power their applications, because their interest and trust in the chain. So it is bringing the world together, much like soccer, and that I think, yeah, I probably hadn't have thought about that before, but my experience traveling and loving to see the world and being able to do that through this industry as well is, I think, a beautiful thing.
it's such a privilege for sure. Now, we're almost out of time here, but I do want to just kind of change this to our segment here of bearish or bullish, and I'll throw out a couple of topics, and we'll leave it on maybe one or so more questions and how people can get in touch with you. But we were kind of talking about this overall, right? And, your experience that you had mentioned about being able to use UST for purchasing different things abroad. So, bearish or bullish on stable coins?
Um, Not all created equal, so bullish on some, bearish on others. Hate to go off on a. I know it's supposed to be quick, but something like USDC, which is backed, dollar for dollar, held in trust, regulated here in the U.S., is not the same as like a programmatic stable who's hoping that the price of Bitcoin doesn't go down, or USDT, which is regulated outside of the U.S. I won't comment to the necessarily the quality of the underlying assets, but yeah, they're all not the same. So potentially bullish or bearish.
Ah, I like that. I like that. And let's go. I mean, we've talked about Bitcoin a little bit. Ethereum, bearish or bullish?
Uh, bearish.
Ooh, a lot of people are bullish on Ethereum. All right, I like that. I like that. Different perspective. And then lastly, you kind of show your cards a little bit, but bearish or bullish on Avalanche and why?
Yeah, bullish on Avalanche. Applications, I think, are the next thing coming to blockchains, and being able to scale blockchains who want their own dedicated application networks uh, is the future. Avalanche is pretty unique to be able to do that.
Fantastic. I love that. Well, folks, this has been a really great conversation. Andrew, I'm so grateful for you and being able to, kind of share a little bit more intimate side here and get a chance to know you more. And I know that we will definitely be in continuing conversations later on. But help the people in the audience if they're looking to, get involved, volunteer, or to, you mentioned your internship, you're looking for that. Are you currently in a stage right now where you're looking for additional funding? Like, is there anything else that maybe the people that are listening today or that get a chance to tune into that recording once we get that posted that you want to share or spread a message? Like, how can we help you?
Yeah, I mean, look, two things, I guess. We're both very passionate to our project. We're raising funds through the end of the year, so accredited investors can get in contact, uh, through the appropriate channels and have those discussions with us. But then on the other side, when we're live and running infrastructure on the Avalanche blockchain, people who want to develop on Avalanche and use that protocol to create smart contracts, decentralized apps, or just want to explore, um, are interested in the space, uh, the builders, the developers, will be able to, dedicate some of our blockchain space to them if they want, to build projects on our network, right? So they don't necessarily have to put up the capital. So we're supporting both sides of the market. Um, and everyone can reach out to us um, through Oasis Pro, and I think that, yeah,
They
that
can
says
get
it.
into, and do you have a preferred method of getting, like if people want to reach out to you on LinkedIn, should they send you like a connection request or should they give their intention or let them know like how?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm a huge LinkedIn guy, so you
Okay.
can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not going to ignore you. I'll take your message, have a conversation, on all things, even if it's just to chat blockchain, um, or the industry in general. That like it's a very open industry, or at least we are in the communities we've been a part of, to even
Yeah.
just share, an education and understanding about this. So, one of the things we've been doing more of too, if there's anyone, on the line who's in the education space, speaking at universities, at classes, happy to go give a discussion. I'm doing it at my alma mater, Hofstra University,
Oh
in two
yeah.
weeks. Yep, yep. And I'm hoping to set up a couple of things in Boston soon through some of our friends over at Cubic Labs, and see what we can get involved with some of the community members. So,
Man, oh man, this has been absolutely fantastic, Andrew. Thank you so much. And for all of the people that are listening today, Chase, Lourdes, Matthew, Susanna, Zoe, Alvaro, Elaine, Antonio, Hoda, David, Randall, Kate, Sarah, Sebastian, Trisha, Kino, and Enric, and Cadero. I know there are some other people there. LinkedIn's not showing me everyone. LinkedIn just always has to be funny like that. But I appreciate all of you for taking the time out of your Friday. You could have been doing anything else in the world, but you chose to share it with us. And I believe this has been a really special conversation. So look forward for a short clip coming out soon, a little recap of our conversation. Then we'll get that full episode uploaded on the YouTube. But overall, guys, thank you so much for your time. Be safe. Have a beautiful weekend. Take care. Bye.
thank you all. Thank you, Trevor.